All right. Hi, friends. Welcome to our very first episode of Abstract Curiosity. My name is Rebeka. I'm a 1-3 mental projector, Virgo sun, Capricorn moon, and rising.
Hey, and I'm Michelle McGinnis. I am a 401 emotional generator. I am sun in Scorpio, moon in Aquarius, and rising Cancer. Welcome to Abstract Curiosity. We're excited you're here with us today.
Welcome, welcome. Yes. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Like I said, this is our very first podcast episode, and we're excited to jump into it.
Yeah, and just to let people know too, because this is our first one, we call it Abstract Curiosity because tell them how you came up with that name. Because I
Oh,
I, I want people to understand it's going to be Chiron a lot, but it's other things. So go ahead and tell them about that.
so it's really from our channels. My only channel is the channel of curiosity, the 1156. And Michelle has the channel abstraction, which is the 6447. She has a couple other channels because she's a beautiful emotional generator. But the channel of abstraction and the channel of curiosity actually really work together in part of the collective circuitry to look back on what has happened and what we know and to really answer like how did we get here? How are all these things happening? And then to build stories about it so that we can gain understanding. And so when
Yep.
we work together with these, we get
Hmm.
to really look at previous knowledge and
Yeah.
to build understanding. And that's what we want to do here with our channel is to really, it is going to be a lot about Chiron because that's our main work, but there's so much more that we're doing. And so it's really about bringing the abstract curiosity to understand our past so that you and me and everybody who's listening to us can really gain understanding. And the more you understand yourself, the more you love yourself, and the more you can move forward in a powerful way.
It couldn't have been more well said. Yeah, and I think that the part of Chiron has been that, I personally just went through my Chiron return, and I think that there has been so much deep understanding of, the purpose of Chiron and what it's here to do. And so, for a quick description for everybody, Chiron is the centaur, right? And it's a centaur that a came in with the wound of like not being loved by its mother, right? In some senses, and it also is because the wound that the centaur had. He was a very different centaur. He was one that was, and I do consider um, Chiron to be a very holistic healer. That's the way we view
Mhm.
it in our work. A part of alternative ways of healing ourselves, because when we're talking about what he brought to us, what his energies were, was how is it that I can heal myself even though the wound still might be present within me? Because that's what Chiron has taught us. And to understand it in the skies is there's Saturn, and then there's a small minor planet called Chiron, and then there's Uranus. And there's reasons why, obviously, that Saturn, a lot of the work that Rebeka and I are doing is between Saturn and Chiron and Uranus, because they all really do teach us things. But to get back to the Chiron, like I think part of the reason that we wanted to do this is because in human design and in astrology, we're always looking for your pure, divine, authentic alignment, which, like you said,
Mm.
was is about knowing thyself, really. And I'm in my 50s, and when I stumbled finally across human design, I felt like I really got to understand myself in such a different way that things did begin to naturally align for myself. What about for you when you discovered it?
Oh yeah, it changed everything. Even though I didn't know what any of it meant, I felt so seen by these weird shapes.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that with the Chiron energy is like when we come in with a wound, and we all do. So if you believe in past lives and you understand that the wound we're talking about is something that you came in from a prior life. If you don't believe in it, that's okay too. It can be a wound that you just felt naturally as a child. It usually shows itself at a very young age. And this is different than shadow work.
Hmm. This is
Rebeka,
the key here. This is the
yeah,
key here to really bring out. because shadow work is huge and there's so much importance in it, but that's not what this is.
Yeah, I think for people to grasp that, to me, shadow work is things and events and memories that have happened in this lifetime that you get to look at, and I think shadow work is important if things are popping up for you. Chiron is this inner droning. It's like I call it a hum of it will feel fearful when you tap into it. Would you not agree?
Hmm.
And when we understand what our Chiron is about, that's when it becomes medicine. Hence why we call our sessions Chiron Medicine, because it gives us an opportunity to see the detail and the validity of why we have this fear. Because isn't it interesting? Every time you think about, or when people learn about what their Chiron return, what their Chiron energy really is, like what they came in here to work through over and over and over again, is it such a slight undertone of fear that's always there that if you were to tell somebody what yours is, people would go, what's the big deal? Why aren't you just walking through that situation? But it's such an internal, like, this is the most fearful thing. I can't describe why I'm so fearful with it. It just doesn't feel good for me. And so that's why we want to bring it to the forefront. Does that make sense?
Yes. Excuse me, I'm still getting over my sickness.
Oh, I know you
Um,
are.
so yes, absolutely. And when you described it as the frequency, like that really, or the humming really,
Yeah. Yeah.
that really made so much sense to me too. It's like, oh, it's always under the surface there. It's like that's where you're tuned into, whether you know it or not. And I think I believe what I've noticed is like just bringing the understanding of it, calling
Hmm.
out what's happening with it,
Hmm.
it changes your relationship to that frequency. Whereas before it's just there and so it's kind of hiding and you tend to be in more of the um we call it the indicator, like the indicators of Chiron really show up. But when you become aware of it, then you can move into more of the growth. You can grow through it and bring out the gifts and the awareness. And then it's not freaking you out so much because you understand like, oh, there's that humming. I know what that is. I don't have to run from it anymore.
That's the key too, is you don't have to run from it anymore. In fact, I think what we've experienced doing the work ourselves and working with other clients with it has been that it almost brings that alignment instantaneously to you,
Hmm.
because it's like you faced it and you walked through it. And I know this is not a great analogy, but what I what we sometimes tell clients is like when you become aware of what your Chiron energy is, what it resembles, how it shows up in your world, right? And then it pops up in your daily living, and then you can catch it, right? Be the observer, because that's what consciousness is. It's like being able to observe it and still walk through it, because that's what
Hmm.
Chiron taught all of us. Like I still have this wound, and his was a physical wound, right? He had a poison dart, I think, go through his foot or his leg. And so it could never be healed, but he learned to walk through it anyways, to keep going forward, to still be the teacher, to still be a healer, to still be the abundance of divination tools. Like he understood all of that aspects. And so when I know I walk through my Chiron, which is very often, and now when I see it, it becomes a lighter and brighter thing. It's like, oh, there it is. I'm still going to walk through it anyways. And when I do, there's always this level. It's almost a rush for me. What is it like for you? For me, it's like a rush. When I realize that I've popped through something through the Chiron energy, through the Chiron medicine, I feel like, oh, that was amazing. I did it. It's such a sense of accomplishment in a very non-egoic way, because again, a lot of other people may not understand that what you've just done, because they don't get it and they don't see it. What is it like for you
Hmm.
when you pop through yours?
Well, it's interesting. I think I'm still observing it because when we're talking now and I'm realizing like some of the discomfort I've been feeling the past couple of days that I was telling you, I've been working through some anxiety.
Yeah.
I'm just now like, oh my gosh, this is so Chiron. Like this is just Chiron stuff coming up. And
It just hit me too. Me too, right before you said it, like, this is your Chiron. Okay, got it. Go on. Sorry, I didn't
it's so
interrupt.
so maybe this is perfect too to really talk about in this space where I've just felt really handicapped. Like the past couple of days have just been so anxious. There's a lot of realizations I've been making about myself,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna have to tell my truth, specifically to my parents. Like there's just a lot, right? And so my Chiron is about speaking my truth and how freaking terrifying it is. And so just like you were saying, other people might not think it's that big of a deal. I see other people just like own their mistakes or whatever. They're just like, that's fine. But for me, it is terrifying. Like I would rather sit in a ball and cry on the floor than actually, tell someone close to me what's actually happening in my mind.
It's true. And I think that's what we want to bring to this channel is this idea that we are still always constantly working through it. And I
Hmm.
think that the more I observe it for myself, and like you are, like there's always layers to it. Like there is layers to everything. But a lot of the times that Chiron medicine doesn't come up for people till their Chiron return, which is right around your 50th birthday. And what we're saying is that what if people were to become aware of it and understand it to be able to spot it at younger ages? And
Yeah.
this is an experiment, right? Because not a lot of people are going to the depth that we go to in Chiron. And let me tell you, there's a lot of depth to it. It isn't, oh, let me go read what it is in my human design chart and like, oh, okay, there's my, it's just so much more than that because we're also looking at the astrology of it, right?
Yes, we combine a lot, the human design, the astrology, and really the gene keys too, looking at the layers of what Richard Rudd calls the shadow and the gift. We started to understand it in a little different way. And so, yeah, that's what's huge about it. Cause then we're looking at, like, if mine's gate 23, it's coming off of my defined throat, which as a mental projector is really important that I am able to express myself, right? and and it's in the fourth house on the conscious side and the fifth house on the unconscious side. And what does that mean? And then I happen to have the same gate for both. You have two different ones, and there's coming off of these two different centers. Like there's such a different story to tell for each person. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, and I think it is fascinating because even when we look at it, like for me, because I've got it, two areas in my human design chart. So there's layers to that. So
Hmm.
sometimes we think we know what our Chiron return is, and then there's a whole nother piece to it. And you're like, oh, I had no idea. So it's kind of understanding all the layers of who you are and what you came here to work through, because that's the essence of Chiron medicine. The more that we can be cognizant and give ourselves permission to walk through it, what happens? Your level of confidence of who you are starts to emanate from really, I know in human design, we talk about it in the love and direction, the G center. That's our magnetizing area, but it oozes from you. And I'm really excited as we continue to move forward on this to see how the magnetizing to ourselves changes. Because I'm a generator. So my magnetizing is, do I get to respond more than to my world? Like, do other things start to pop in, right?
Hmm.
Do you get a new expansion and awareness within being a mental projector? Like, and we're not saying that, like, we don't know how it's going to work out for everybody else. We know the tools, we know how to read it, we know how to support you in the journey. But the exciting part, just like with human design and astrology, is it's your gift. Like, it's your time to understand it and play with it and then report back to let us know.
Yes. Yes. And you talked about just now, you said it's your gift. And that's the thing too that's so fascinating about it.
Mm.
It's the medicine. That's why it's the Chiron's medicine, because yes, it's that humming, it's that frequency that we talked about in the beginning. It's the wound that you came in with. but only if you're not aware of it, only if you're letting the lower expression of it really try to control you, because the medicine is in the wound. That's the key here. That's why calling it out and shining a light on it is so important and so beautiful and reveals
Mm,
so much to you.
I love that. And understanding how knowing this, like I can't even imagine having known this and understanding and starting to work with the humming. We will constantly refer to it as that because I really do believe that's what it is. Like, and
Mhm.
your example of like how like I'm feeling anxious, like I'm not sure why, and like all of a sudden the epiphany of again, like I'm walking through another chironic moment
Yes.
in
Yes.
this moment. Yeah.
So it's real life. I hope that everybody could see the relief on my face, like for me to be able to laugh about it. And that's the key here, is like it really is, like it might feel scary, but then it's just become so fun where you're like, oh, there's Chiron. Okay, got it. Now I know what to do.
Right? It's so flippin' amazing. Yeah, and listen, there were tears shed. Like when we started doing this work on one another, like there were some tears in this. Like, yep, there it
So
is.
much. I
You
remember
instantly
with
feel it.
you,
Yeah.
yes, like especially with your subconscious one, you're like, well, I just think it comes from here. It's no big deal. Like, I think I figured it out. And then we dug into it, and then you're like, "Ah."
It's so true. It's so true. She cracked me open. Oh, it's so freaking true. And I'm not always as eloquent as Rebeka is when it comes to like dispersing the quick information because, my Chiron is one is in my Anjana and the other one's in my G center. And for me, there was almost a disconnect.
Hmm.
My moon's in Aquarius. I'm a thinker. I process my emotions through thoughts, right? That's like my comfort zone. And so I could intellectualize it, but it wasn't until you helped me pop into that G center, because mine's gate 25. And I was just like, ooh, the spirituality of things, right? So in human design, we talk about gate 25. To me, it's like the love of life. It is the place that a lot of people who are open to spirituality, whatever that definition is for you, and for me, it's like really connecting with um, another powerful part of myself, which was a part that I was not comfortable talking about, which is my intuitive gifts. Like it's the thing that I fought the most with my whole life, and the thing that has presented itself in such a like in my face, like, oh, I guess I have to deal with this. I have to look at it. So if you're someone like me who is in her 50s and you're still struggling with some things, it could be part of the Chiron that you are kind of avoiding because we all do that. Like that's human behavior.
Yeah, it's part of what we're here. It's a part of our healing. So of course it's gonna come to us in different layers at different times.
Yeah, it really is. It is layers. It is
There's no
layers.
there's no judgment, is what we're saying. Like there's never any judgment here. It's not about you being bad or wrong in any
No,
capacity. It's
no.
just, let's look at where you're tuned into and where we can change that or connect to that.
I hope I didn't come across that way. Was I coming across it? Because I hope I,
No,
okay,
no, I don't
good. No,
think
I'm
you were
glad you
coming
said that.
across that way. It just like, yeah.
But I'm glad you said that because I think that's what you and I talked about so much was this concept of like, we want people to understand that Chiron medicine is the most loving, natural thing. And sometimes you're going to need two moms. We're moms, right?
Hmm.
Um, Moms who know what it's like to find your boo-boo and need some strength and sometimes need some extra nurturing or some extra support in it
Yeah,
as you're
yeah.
going through your learning and integrating because I think there is levels of integration with this. This isn't like, oh, this is what it's about. Okay, I'm done. It's like
Fixed now.
I'm fixed. No, it's not how it works. It's like, yeah, there's and I think through every phase of life as you're learning this, it will look a little different.
It
right?
will, because we figured out that I am smack in the middle of my Uranus opposition transition time, which we'll do a whole other episode on. We'll have one for
Totally.
each big thing. So it's so fascinating to me that we came together during this time where I'm in the middle of my Uranus opposition. You've just moved through your Chiron return, and these are big things. So you can still see how the Chiron is kind of filtering my experience through this. And then, like, so hopefully, I've got another 10 years or so before the Chiron return comes. And so hopefully it'll be a little smoother transition at that time because now I'm aware of it, working through some stuff here.
1000%. Yeah. And I think that's something that people need to understand because, like, we really do understand the concepts of your Saturn return, which is when you go from your 20s to your 30s. And then you've got your Uranus return, which is right around your 40th, 40th. What's the word I'm looking 40s? The 40 range. And it just
Yes.
depends on the age when it happens. And then you have your Chiron return. These are the really big transitions in your life that everybody goes through.
Hmm.
And so when we're talking about the Chiron medicine with people, Rebeka and I are obviously also looking at your charts to see where you are. What is your
Hmm.
age? What is your experience? Where, um, have you gone through your Saturn return? Cool. We'll probably tap into that a little bit. How was that experience for you? Have you integrated it? It's interesting because one of the people who I absolutely adore, and I think Rebeka does too, is Barbara Handclough. She's written an amazing book called Chiron. It's a very detailed. I wouldn't say it's for if you don't know astrology, like reading it might feel like it's a foreign world. And
Hmm.
and we laugh because I bought that book years ago, and I remember I pulled it out years ago when I was just learning astrology, and I was starting to read it, and I'm like, I just want to get to what my Chiron's about. I remember thinking that I just want to get to where what's my Chiron about?
Just want to fix it and move on.
So freaking true, as a generator would be, right? And I didn't understand it. So I put the book away because I was still too new. But she has done an amazing job of, for me, I have a whole new layer in respect for all three of those transits, much more
Hmm.
than I ever did before, and how there's so much truth in each one of those events. And Rebeka and I were talking about like school, like right now, what we're teaching our children, and the difference now between when we went to school and what kids are into now. And the idea of the internet and AI is changing everything. When you and I were in school, it was when you go write a report, you have to go to the library. So you have to get a ride to the library.
You still have to do the card catalog.
Then you had to go do those micro thingies, hoping, and then you would get to the piece of information from some article and it would be two sentences. And you're like, that took me an hour to find those two sentences. My mom's coming to pick me up in another hour and don't have my report done. Okay, it was a different time.
Yes.
Information now is available to everyone anywhere.
Hmm.
So, I mean, my dream would be that people are learning more about themselves now and that schooling is pivoting more to this openness of, but this is really the element of who you are. Like, go back even to ancient times. People in the courts, the kings and the queens, always had an astrologer on hand.
Hmm.
Always. They always knew the transits. They knew when was a good time to do things. And that got kind of poo-pooed away. And so my hope with some of this work is that not only will people learn their Chiron medicine for themselves, they'll be the observer for their own children on it. Children don't need to learn this. They have to go and experience life. But if you know your child's chart so well and you've done your own work, like it's going to pivot how the consciousness plays out on the planet completely with stuff like this. Do you agree?
Yes, yes, especially with us moving into the age of Aquarius, and in human design we're moving into the cross of the sleeping phoenix. So we're moving out of the age of Capricorn and the cross of planning where it's very much like let's build the structures, let's
Mm-hmm.
do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Capricorn's like I need the security of the structure. And now we're moving into Aquarius and Sleeping Phoenix, where it's like, let's take care of everybody. Like the structures are in place. Thank you, Capricorn.
Yes.
And now, how can we actually build community in this and build humanity inside of this? And I think everything you're saying is totally right. Like, if people were taught more about themselves as an individual and learned how to strengthen that, that changes so much. Then people aren't 42 years old figuring out they're probably autistic and their whole life has been a lie. So it's like, it's fascinating. And
It
when
is.
and the way the school tries to put everybody in a box, like, here's what you do. And if you're neurodiverse, then you go over to this other room and somebody else will figure you out because I don't know. But what if everybody was just an individual?
And I get it, coming from a family of a lot of teachers, like I understand like the frustrations within, and you too, like you're in that industry, like teaching it. But here's the concept. Like again, we have to take it back to schooling like we're doing now was done because information was only obtained in the school. It had the books.
Yes, and
It had the library.
they needed to teach kids how to sit for a while so that they could become factory workers essentially. Like,
Yes.
there were
Yes.
certain it we've been doing school the same for 100 years. We don't
It's
do
time.
anything else the same.
No. No. And they haven't figured it out. And none of us have. Like there is no perfect thing, but I do see that there's so much more available to how people want to educate their kids, even from when my kids were in school. Like it's a whole
Oh
different
yeah.
world. And had I known and understood myself first and foremost, we always have to start with ourselves because as moms, we typically want to run and go look at our kids's or our
Hmm.
partner's charts and like, oh, this is about them. It's like, oh, do the internal work on yourself first. We're giving you permission because
Yes, please, mom.
most of us are running around trying to take care of everybody. But once I got to spend time integrate, and I'm still integrating, I will never be done integrating this type of information, whether it's Chiron medicine or gene keys, astrology, or human design. I'm never done learning. And I also have a one in my profile. So there you go. But I think that's we have to give ourselves permission as women or a dad parent, a male figure parent who is really into this stuff, like giving yourself permission to take your time to learn yourself first, because there is a inner peace with integration. There is,
There is.
mhm.
And that
And
old saying is cliche, but true for a reason. You got to put your oxygen mask on first. Like, you can't actually help your kids or your family until you totally understand yourself. I shouldn't say totally understand, until you begin to find peace within yourself. Because again, it's always a journey. It's always learning. It's not like you're like, I get me now. Let's move
yeah,
on.
yeah. Well, do you want to talk a little bit more about the Chiron medicine, and where we're seeing ourselves moving forward with all of that?
With our offer that we're putting out, yes. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this one. We've already done a few readings with people and it's been fascinating to watch. And so really, we get the opportunity to look at people's charts. We dig into where is your Chiron, and again, like we talked about, what gate is it? What center is it off of? Is that center for you defined or undefined? We've even seen some Chiron where people have it in another transit, so it's actually active in their
Mm-hmm.
chart. So
Mm-hmm.
then that gives a whole other layer, right? But then
Mm-hmm.
we're looking at what sign is it in? What house is it in? The conscious versus subconscious. There's all these layers that tell such a deep story. And like we said, for us, it's already unpacked so much and brought some awareness and some healing and some growth. Like for you specifically, I just want to call it's been so cool because you were so nervous about sharing certain aspects of your spirituality, specifically your channeling, and you started doing it and you've had such an amazing response and it's been so beautiful. And one of our clients was telling us, like, after we talked to her, she just totally changed, it just changed her perspective on so much. She's another mental projector. She started getting all these invitations that she had been trying to get for months, and then it just started showing up because she was showing up differently. And so it's been beautiful to watch and to call this out. And so that's why we're excited to share this with so many more people, to be able to walk you through this story and to connect you to what it is, to both the wound and the medicine of showing up in the bright, beautiful way that you are designed to show up in this world.
Yeah, I love it.
What would you add to that?
No, I think you nailed it all. I really do. There's nothing more satisfying than having somebody really sink into this Chiron medicine and see the potential beyond it,
Hmm.
beyond when you walk through it, because that feeling when it bubbles up again, it's kind of like when you've been sick for a while and all of a sudden you take that first drink of water and it feels amazing. And you're like, I'm never eating anything poisonous again because I just got through the flu, right? Those moments.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, if you can describe it in a physical sense, that elation of like, I am alive, I've made it through. Every time you take Chiron's medicine in a beautiful, holistic way, that's what it feels like this rejuvenation, this electric energy of like, I have the potential and my truth really has been laying in Chiron. My
Mm.
truth has been laying in Chiron. Um, yeah, I think that's beautiful.
It is beautiful. And the fact that you get two of us. Like we just keep having this
Mm,
image of the two moms, like you said before. And I mean, how nurturing is that? It's like we're both here. And then it's so much fun too, because I love hearing you talk about your like how you see the things and the things that you come up with that I never would have come up with. And then that sparked something for me. And so again, that's just a whole other layer, a whole other depth to have these two different types looking at your chart and bringing all this wisdom. It's
yeah,
it's just fun. Thank you for
it
doing
is
this journey
fun.
with me.
Yeah, I mean, double thank you to you. Amazing. And I think that that is the difference. Like, please understand that our Chiron medicine sessions, they're both of us. Like, yeah, and you'll feel that support, you'll feel that nurturing and that loving, and yeah, it's pretty epic. And I love that because it's truly about like what we're doing here, uh, together, to me, is a new way of business,
Hmm.
of knowing that you're going to have people who your perception and what your world has been like is so different than my perception and my world, so you kind of get a big broader support band, I guess is what I would say, in the session. So we're excited. So if you're interested, you know where to go. And we're excited. We will be coming on here and doing all kinds of topics and stories and abstract curiosity. That's why we called it that, because we're going to be diving into all kinds of different aspects on this channel,
Mm.
and in this podcast. And we're so excited to get going. And if anybody ever has any questions or ideas for us, like if something that you want us to dive more into deeply, you can always email us at abstractcuriosityhd@gmail.com. Could that be a little longer? I don't think so, but we'll have the link below, right? We'll have the link below.
Oh yeah, we'll have the link or just post a comment, whatever. Yeah, but absolutely come ask us questions.
Yeah,
We love a good question.
we do love a good question. We get to go back into our Anjana and just process it all,
Yes, yes.
which
And I
is
gotta
awesome.
say, I'm under the belief that there is no dumb questions. So
I
ask away.
I totally agree with you, because it's always something that somebody else is wondering too. And I think
Hmm.
sometimes because we can go into the depths of the core of things, sometimes a real easy, gentle question lobbed in is probably exactly what we forgot to talk about. So bring those
Yes.
questions up, please. Bring those questions up. So until next time, you guys, thank you so much for being a part of the Abstract Curiosity family. And we look forward to going on this beautiful Chiron medicine adventure with you. Until next time.
Thank you so much. Love you all.